Okay, let's crack on then. So yeah, my name's Julian Hubble. I'm the Sales and Marketing Manager for DrayTek UK, and I'll be hosting this webinar today. Later on, I'll have a gentleman called Alex Shuker who will be joining me to cover the Q&A towards the end. So hopefully we can cover any technical or any commercial questions that you may have as a result of the webinar. Okay, the agenda is as follows. We're going to start off with a couple of slides on DrayTek positioning, and then we'll rapidly get on to the meat of this webinar. We're going to cover, firstly, what is VDSL, a lot of terms and industry descriptions that sort of cover the same topic, so I'm going to try and bring all that together just to avoid any confusion. Then I'm going to talk about the DrayTek products, and there is a range of products we now have that support VDSL technologies. We've got some accessories that may help the experience of the DrayTek product, and some information on how to get more information from DrayTek on some of the topics we've discussed today. And as I said, there will be an opportunity for a Q&A a little bit later on in the broadcast. Okay, so I'm now going to kick off with what we regard as DrayTek position. So I guess you're on this webinar because you kind of know DrayTek. You're probably one of our mailing lists, or perhaps you use a DrayTek product. But simply put, we've been around quite a few years. We're a Taiwanese-based organisation, although perhaps not what you'd stereotypically associate with Taiwan products maybe some decades ago. We are in that sort of superior network products place in the marketplace. So it's not the sort of product you get free with a £5.99 a month internet service. Our products are bought by individuals and organisations who want a little bit more from the internet. We describe our products as business class, and what we kind of mean by that is the internet is great, it's relatively cheap, it's relatively fast, especially so with VDSL, and it's available just about everywhere, which is absolutely great, but of course can be quite unsafe, can be quite insecure, can be unreliable at times. We've all heard of internet sort of not being there one day, or maybe fast one day and slow the next. And it can be a little bit an area where things can get out of control. Mums and dads want to control what their children are accessing, and obviously businesses want to make sure that their workers are doing what they should do, not doing Facebook, email, whatever, what have you. So what we do as an organisation, if you look throughout our product, is kind of help you get the most out of the internet and sort of mitigate against those sort of classic issues that organisations and individuals often get. We also sort of fine-tune our solutions so they're suitable for data, voice, and also video, with quality of service and a bunch of other services there. So I can't describe it any better than saying that PC Pro magazine said if you're buying a router for business, DrayTek is an obvious choice. We've had quite a few accolades over the year. The most recent was the PC Pro Awards 2014 Best Wireless Router Brand in their Excellence Awards. This was voted for by all their PC Pro subscribers, and they rated DrayTek as the best out of all the router brands in the UK. So we're very proud of that award, and we won several others as well, some for our managed wireless from Mann & Stevens at ZDNet, and also a recent one for the Viger 2860, which is one of the products I'm going to cover today. Anyway, without further ado, hopefully a good backdrop to what I'm going to talk about today, and hopefully you can see that we've got a very, very good pedigree behind us. So I'm going to start this by talking about some of the VDSL terms and what kind of everything means. Well, in sort of classic industry style, we've got a fairly weird acronym here. VDSL stands for Very High Bit Rate Digital Subscriber Line, or VDSL, and it's kind of the big brother, if you like, or the faster version of what most of us kind of use, which is ADSL, which of course means asymmetric digital subscriber line, asymmetric being fast in one direction and perhaps slower in the other. When we talk about VDSL, it's often referred to in other contexts as well. So the BT Infinity service is effectively a VDSL service. When BT talk about fibre broadband, quote unquote, that's really a VDSL service. Interesting, it's not really fibre to your premises, which is what it sounds like. There is an element of fibre in it, but it is really a VDSL copper wire service. FTTC is another one, fibre to the cabinet, high-speed broadband. They're all kind of terms that kind of mean the same thing. If you look at VDSL as a service, the sort of speeds you can typically get at the high end, 20 megabit upload and 20 megabit download, which is probably as fast as any small business or home user may reasonably want. There are slightly slower derivatives of this service depending on the infrastructure that's supporting you, of 10 meg upload and 40 meg download. But basically, it's a higher speed version of ADSL. Okay, so why is VDSL different to ADSL? How does it differ? Well, I've got here a sort of fairly classically simple topological view of how DSL services are provided. So on the left here you've got the telephone exchange. That connects through a copper wire service to your local green street cabinet, and then the final bit, often referred to as the last mile, is typically an ADSL connection. So you've got copper wire from telephone exchange to street cabinet, which could be a fairly long distance, which adds resistance and causes degradation of the line. You've got copper wire from the street cabinet to the premise, which again, depending on the length, can cause degradation and affect the line speed. So when you've got copper from exchange to cabinet and copper from cabinet to home or premise, you've basically got a fair amount of interference, which means the level of service you can get or the speed you can get is relatively low, and that's a classic ADSL service. If you look at the VDSL service, look at the VDSL service there, what changes is that the connection between the telephone exchange and the street cabinet becomes fibre, and then the connection between the street cabinet and the home or premise still remains copper. Because that distance is far less, it means you can effectively pump more information, more data down that line, and the technology used to do that is called VDSL. So essentially, from a premises point of view, things look pretty much the same. You've got the same RJ11 connector into the plug on the wall. It's still the same copper connection to the street cabinet, but because you've got that fibre from exchange to street cabinet, you can produce a much faster speed and a much faster service. That's a very simple sort of description of what the difference is, and obviously you can see BT doing this in various areas. You can see high-speed broadband, fibre broadband stickers on various street cabinets, and slowly this is now proliferating throughout the UK. So I'm now going to move on to the sort of products we do and how we can help businesses and individuals make the most of the VDSL service. So there are three products I'm going to talk about today. The first one is called the Viger 2860 range. This is now rapidly becoming our flagship product. Many businesses and sort of, I suppose, home users that want to get the most of the internet like to use DrayTek, and the 2860, I suppose, is kind of top of the range for those types of organisations and individuals. So I'm going to be talking about that. We also have a more entry-level product called the Viger 2760 range, which is more positioned at the consumer or small office, home office, SOHO as we call it as an abbreviation, where you want a really good, reliable, quality product to connect to the internet, but you may not necessarily need all the bells and whistles that the business class range offers. So it's a slightly pared down product at a slightly new lower price point. And finally, we have a product called the Viger 130, which is brand new. In fact, it's not shipping yet, but depending when the boat comes in, it will be available either next week or the week after. So this is the first time we're actively presenting this to our customers and prospects. So this is the first occasion to have a look at this new exciting product, which I'll cover today. So I'm going to firstly talk about the Viger 2860, our flagship product. You can see what the product looks like in this kind of picture here. And the first thing to say is that it's got two USB ports built into the product, classically associated with a 3G/4G dongle, often used for a kind of a failover service. So for example, your main circuit fails for whatever reason. If you've got the 3G/4G dongle connected, that 3G/4G connection will click in automatically, continue the connection to the internet without interruption of service for the people using it. So we sell a lot of these into especially sort of high street retail, a shop or something that needs to continue credit card transactions even if the classic broadband service is unreliable. That's a really good, relatively low cost way of doing it. So that's a great use of the USB port. It can also be used for USB memory or some sort of USB piece of storage. So sort of, I suppose, a vanilla version of NAS is the best way I'd describe that. You've not got the classic, mirroring and RAID and so on, but it's quite a neat little thing to have for a small business. And you can also share a printer from this port as well. So when you add that together, those two USB ports add quite a bit to a small business. We have two physical WAN ports on the device. On the left-hand side, you've got what I term as a dual personality WAN port that will connect to VDSL or ADSL. So this will effectively auto-sense what connection it's got and just train up or connect into that service automatically. So really good for a VDSL service, obviously, but also really good if somebody wants to make a purchase today that covers the ADSL service they've got, but in the future can see VDSL come in on further down the line and want to swap across. Obviously, if you've got this product, ADSL today, VDSL tomorrow, no need to change firmware or change products. The same product effectively covers all. There's also a second Ethernet WAN port on the right, which can be used for a number of things. This can obviously be used for Virgin Media or other cable type services, but with the use of a modem, and in fact I'll be covering this a little bit later on, you can connect an ADSL and or VDSL service into this device as well, which is great for load balancing, and I'll cover that in more depth in the presentation. And finally, you've got 6 LAN ports built into the device, so 6 gigabit LAN ports, which acts as a 6-port switch. So you combine this lot together, there's quite a lot packed into this product, and buy it as one device, it may avoid the need to buy other ancillary devices, such as switches and so on and so forth. So DrayTek have really tried to pack an awful lot into this relatively low-cost product. So the main sort of features from a sort of physical perspective are really as follows. So the first thing to say is that this supports 4 different broadband connection types. So it supports VDSL, it supports ADSL, it supports Ethernet WAN, and it also supports 3G and 4G, and you can use these technologies in virtually any combination for combining 2 together to form a load balance connection, or using one as a backup. So absolutely ideal for load balancing, as it says here, for connecting 2 things together. You can see down here there's a kind of diagram there. You've got WAN 1, which is connected to your ADSL or VDSL service, and you've got WAN 2 that is connected via a modem to, again, an ADSL or VDSL service. So this can be used with a primary connection, used most of the time, and the secondary connection kicks in if the main one fails, or it can be used in a load balancing situation, which is probably more commonly where we see this. Either you've got 50% of the information going down one connection and 50% going down the other, or often if you've got a kind of mixed multimedia environment, you may have all your voice traffic going down WAN 2, for example, and all the data traffic going down WAN 1. So there's a big flexibility in terms of how you can use this. The other sort of classic use for this is for line failover. In this example here, we've got the main connection to the internet. It could be Ethernet WAN, it could be cable, it could be VDSL or ADSL. But the important thing is, through the USB port, you've got a 3G, 4G modem that kicks into place if the main line fails. So main connection fails, 3G, 4G kicks in automatically. When the main line comes back again, 3G, 4G stops, and it goes back to business as usual. So simple dongle, simple pay-as-you-go contract, relatively low-cost way of getting you out of trouble if there's a problem on the main line. So that's a great feature that many of our customers use. Not time to go into this in any great detail today. It's a webinar in its own right. But with the 2860, you get kind of for free, as part of the firmware, a managed wireless controller. Now through this you can manage up to 20 DrayTek access points and create one virtual Wi-Fi network with multiple access points joining together to create that virtual network, enabling individuals to sign on one part of the network and move to the other without losing connection. Great for load balancing traffic across a campus area. So well worth looking into. In fact, we've got a webinar in the next couple of weeks which you've been notified on that covers all this. But good to know this comes effectively for free with the 2860 firmware. And the key sort of software and firmware features we have in this product, the classic ones that organisations like, is 32 dial-in, dial-out VPN tunnels, so enabling obviously secure connections from teleworkers or branch offices. Great for file sharing and access to other office resource remotely. Classically can act as a VPN concentrator. in a small head office. And this also supports VPN trunking, where you may have two physical connections, but you're sharing one virtual VPN connection across those two connections. Again, it's a kind of webinar its own right, that particular feature, but very, very good for VPN, this product. So the main features are extensive firewall capability, web content filtering, and all the other stuff you'd associate with the firewall. Great for bandwidth management as well. Traffic prioritization is becoming a very important thing now, with organizations wanting to stream data, wanting to sort of put voice over IP across the network, maybe got big file transfers that occur from time to time. Products are really, really good at doing that and making sure that the right level of bandwidth is allocated to the right services on the network. Loads of apps as well, great for authentication, so you can make sure it's only authorized users that get onto the network and so on and so forth. So huge bunch of facilities there. So the firewall's very fast, goes up to 200 megabits, so this will handle pretty much anything that a modern ADSL or VDSL service can handle it, and throw it times two. So if you've got the fastest VDSL service that the industry is capable of providing you, you can whack 2 into this product and it will handle the speed relatively easily. And I think I've covered some of the other things as well. And I will cover this later on, but there's a really good comparison chart you can look at on the DrayTek website that enables you to compare this to all our products, but I will cover this a little bit later on. So in terms of the different options, there's a standard 2860 basic model, there's a Wi-Fi option covering classic wireless N. Obviously the unit sprouts aerials and you can use that in a Wi-Fi environment. The VN has a VoIP option. This basically means you can plug 2 standard analog telephones into the device and you can make voice over IP calls across the network. And for those that want dual band, so 2.4 and 5.8 gigahertz Wi-Fi services, classically used in very built-up areas, that option is available too with the N Plus and the VN Plus. So quite a few models there. Not going to go into every one in great depth, but hopefully you can discover this a little bit later on. So that's kind of the Viga 2860. If you've got any specific questions on that, please ask now, and one of our guys will respond straight away. So I'm now going to move on to the consumer or SOHO range of VDSL products, and I'm going to introduce the Viga 2760 series of product. So on this product here, you've got a single broadband connection. So obviously, if you remember on the 2860, there were 2 broadband connections that could be used simultaneously. Now, the 2860, I think, quite uniquely has a DSL port, or it has an Ethernet WAN port, so that they can't be used together, but they can be used instead of each other. So you can buy this product and plug it into a Virgin Media cable service, or you can buy this product and plug it into a VDSL or ADSL service. So you can see on the left there, you've got the similar VDSL, ADSL auto-sensing WAN port, and on the right you can see there is a 4-port Ethernet switch, and on one of those ports there's a dual personality in that it can be used in a LAN or a WAN environment. So this pretty much covers all the sort of broadband connection services that are offered in the UK in one standard product, which is really quite neat. So it's also got the USB ports. You can plug in a 3G, 4G dongle for backup purposes, as you could in the 2860, and also use it for memory and printer sharing in a very similar way. And I've also mentioned the 4 LAN ports as well. They're all gigabit, and it's a full port switch as well. So again, quite handy to have in the SOHO. So the main sort of features are the multi-WAN capability, but as I stress, you can either use VDSL or ADSL or Ethernet WAN, but you can additionally have 3G as a backup. Really comprehensive firewall, really similar to the Viga 2860 with QoS, web filtering, the quality of service and the powerful firewall. It does support VPN as well, but it only supports it as an outbound service. So this is really ideal for probably a home worker that needs to outbound VPN into the office, possibly terminated with a 2860 or equivalent VPN concentrator. So available in the standard version, the N version or the VN version, similar to the 2860. One of the neat things on this product, and this is actually a feature of the more later firmware, is you've got a kind of standard dashboard there that gives a whole bunch of information on the product. So the model name, the firmware version, the MAC address, a whole bunch of information on how the product is performing today. And if you look at the top right hand side there which says nameplate, it gives you a sort of virtual view of what the lights flashing look like on the real products itself. So this is a really neat way of kind of troubleshooting what might be going on at the remote site. Again, not much time to go into this in great depth today, but I hope that gives you a view on how this product can be used. Okay, so the final product I'm going to talk about is the Viger 130. This is brand new, actually much anticipated, as it's a kind of a sister product, if you like, of our popular Viger 120, which was used to connect an Ethernet presentation router to an ADSL service. So the beauty really of the Viger 130 is really in its simplicity. The device itself is an Ethernet modem and will enable you to connect Ethernet router or a product that has an Ethernet interface, such as a 2860 for example, if you're using it in failover mode, very simply to a VDSL or ADSL presentation. So it bridges a single IP address or public subnet, Ethernet connection on the client device, and absolutely no setup or configuration required. I mean, there's obviously many ways that you could connect an Ethernet style router to a VDSL service. You could sort of, I suppose, put in a router and play around with it and sort of make it in modem mode. But often it's quite complicated to do. It's a lot of messing around and it's not ideal. The Viger 130 makes this really, really simple. So I've got a kind of example there. If you look at where it says example application, you've got your ADSL VDSL line connecting to the Ethernet, so to the internet, shall I say. You've got the Ethernet port on the Viger 130, and then you've got the connection to the Ethernet presented router. So obviously this could be a DrayTek router, or in fact it could be any other router or firewall, come to that, because the whole point about it is it's completely zero touch. And in the sort of bottom right example there, you've got WAN going into perhaps a VDSL service, and you've got WAN 2 going into another VDSL service via the Viger 130. Interestingly, on the Viger 130 you can get some information from the Viger 130 into the Viger 2860 to actually do some troubleshooting as well. So it's zero touch, but it does provide useful information into the Viger 2860, so you can see what's going on the network for troubleshooting purposes as well. On the bottom left there, we've got an example of an Ethernet only router where you may have two Ethernet connections and two Viger 130s connecting to VDSL, but obviously that could apply to a 468 port product or what have you. Okay, so that really covers the tour on the three available sort of VDSL products. You've got the business class in the Viger 2860, the Soho consumer class product in the Viger 2760, and the accessory Viger 130 that connects any Ethernet presented router onto the VDSL network. There's a few accessories that may be of interest to you. Firstly, we have a rack mount kit for the 2860. Also relates to some of our other business class products, but obviously we're talking about the 2860 today. Quite a natty little design. The router kind of slots into it and it just bolts into a standard rack in the usual way. Quite a neat way of kind of hiding it away from prying hands or people that like to pull cables out. Interestingly, a lot of people ask us about Wi-Fi on that. So if you've got a router like that and it's put into a rack, how do you use Wi-Fi without it sort of being affected by the density of the rack? Well, we do some aerials that you can connect into the aerial ports on the router, and literally there's a magnetic aerial that just plugs on the side of the rack, and that enables you to Wi-Fi enable the environment. We also have global view, web content filtering. Within the firmware of the 2860 and the 2760, you can enable some web content filtering by blocking specific IP addresses or specific sites that have got a specific name in it. But often organisations and households want to block entire categories of site, like, adult sites or social media sites or something like that. With the addition of Global View, which is a subscription service, you can block whole categories of site, and you've got some kind of examples on the right-hand side there. So tick that box, apply it to an individual or group of individuals or the entire site, and all sites within that category will be blocked as far as the user is concerned. And finally, we've got a neat accessory called VigaClear, which kind of extends the warranty and gives a better quality of warranty. So you get 2 years return to base warranty as standard within the product. By VigaCare, that extends it to 3 years and gives you what we call exchange replacement, which means if we identify there's a problem, you can send the product back to us and we will send you a replacement product kind of in the post as they swap. So that's quite a neat little solution there if you want to make sure you've got maximum uptime, although I have to say our products are quite reliable. Okay, so those are the accessories. I'm just going to take my life in my hands and see if I can go off this and just show you some ways of finding out more information. So I'm just going to click on DrayTek.com now, and I'm going to go onto the DrayTek.com website, and I'm just going to show you how you can take a more technical look at these products. If you go on the DrayTek.com website, go into what it says supports, then scroll down to live web demo. This shows you all the products we have in our range, and by clicking on them, and I'm going to click on the 2860 just to show you, click on the 2860 series there and the version number. This will take you to a virtual view of what the configuration looks like on that particular product. So I think I'm on the dashboard here. You can see what the lights look like on it. I can click on the online status here, physical connection. It can show you packets going up and down the line and various other bits and pieces. But you've also got, certificates, VPN, system maintenance, and a whole bunch of stuff. So essentially, by clicking on that, you can see exactly what the product does, which is quite a neat thing to have. Just a kind of word of caution on this. This is an international site. And they tend to have one release of firmware on there, and we have different versions of firmware in different parts of the world. So you may find on this there might be specific things that pertain to a particular country that aren't relevant to the UK. It's 99% you should be okay, but it's just something to be aware of, really. We also have a product comparison chart as well, which I'll just take you to now. So this is the DrayTek website. If you go into products and scroll down to comparison and click that, there's rather a neat table here which has all the products listed on the top, all the products listed on the top and all the features listed down the left hand side. So you can see, how fast are these products, how do they compare, how many VPNs does it support, how many sessions can you support, how many LAN subnets, does it do load balancing or not, and a whole bunch of other things. So really easy way of sort of figuring out which particular product is best suitable to you. We've also got an excellent knowledge base which is being added to all the time. Just going to firing this one up now. So you can get to this by going into support and scrolling down to product knowledge base. I have to add, you need to be registered to use this service. So you can register as an end user or a dealer. Go through the registration process. They'll give you a login and an ID, and away you go. And you can look at particular products, or you can look at specific FAQ sections. So there's an FAQ on voice over IP and wireless LAN, for example, or just add a generic search in there, and it will give you a great FAQ. Now these FAQs are much more than just one-liners. For example, if you go into the FAQ on 3G backup, it'll give you a complete description of what it does, how to set things up, how to troubleshoot, and so on and so forth, which many of our customers found incredibly useful. There's also details on all the products you've seen today. I'm just going to take you to the Viga 2860 page now, but if you go to products, scroll down to business, you can then go across and look at the Viga 2860 here, the various wireless access points and various other products there. If you go to Soho, it'll take you to the 28760 series, and obviously you can scroll down to the Viga 130 and all the various other products that you've seen today. So hopefully, fairly easy to find out more information. Obviously, you can also contact us. So I think I'm pretty much on time. So I think that was 31, 32 minutes, which we're planning to do. Kind of a whistle top tour. It wasn't intended to be, hugely detailed and going into sort of technical details in the nth degree. Really just a way of giving you an overview of what a VDSL is all about, and also some of the product sets that are associated with it. So thank you very much indeed for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Please could you just give us some feedback? I know it's a bit of a pain, you probably don't want to do it, but it should only take a couple of minutes, and we really appreciate that feedback. So thank you very much. Hope you found that useful, and we look forward to seeing you on a future webinar, and have a great day. Okay, bye for now.